What's going on, fam? How is everybody doing? How is everybody doing? I hope you all are having an absolutely fantastic day. I do hope you are. Listen, this ain't gonna take long, but we got some stuff we got to get to. I hope everybody understands, and if for the people who don't understand, if you don't understand, then you don't understand. That's just on you. But for everybody who understand, you understand, and you understand, we got to do. I even left the thing up there because we're going to talk about how some people are winners who shouldn't be winners. That's from Patreon, but it stays. I was trying to wipe it. I was like, nah, you know what? No. No, it sticks around because it is part of the conversation that we are having today. That's just what it is. I'm sorry. Listen. I really do not like, I don't like to, one of the things that happened in this whole process was this idea that to have a conversation or to have a critique of somebody was like, it was like, well, wait, Yvette, why you always taking shots and why you can't work together and why you can't, and at a certain point, you try to teach people. And you try to tell people that, like, it's not shots. It's not shots. But, like, if that's what you want, if shots is what you need, then maybe that's what we do. I don't know. Maybe that's what we do. If that's what you need, if that's what people need to understand, then it's shots. If people can't understand the politics of it, then it's shots. Okay, let it be whatever it's going to be. It'll be shots then. And I don't care no more. I don't care what you say about it, how you feel about it. I don't care. Because and those of you all who do not know what I'm talking about your boy. Your boy, Dr. Umar Johnson, got on, and I watched the whole Patreon, ladies and gentlemen. This is not something, Yvette, you just heard a couple of clips. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't, and see, it was some good stuff in there. Y'all love to marry 50% stuff that don't make no sense with 50% stuff that I was saying when Dr. Umar Johnson was focusing on kids, which I think should be his focus still. You got to just hone in on that instead of everything. But okay, let's just, we can have a conversation about it, right? So, and I put this up because ADOS came up in the conversation. And first of all, Dr. Umar said initially, well, you have to, I don't really know. I don't like to speak about groups I don't know about. Then he said FBA and ADOS are like the same thing, right? Why are people? he said they're like the same thing. Well, no, they're not. And if you don't like to speak on those things, say, listen, you should probably defer to Yvette Carnell or Antonio Moore if you want to understand more about it. Why not do that? Was the first thing. But it was like 5 hours, ladies and gentlemen. I understand why the man calls himself the king. You got to be wary of people who call themselves the prince of Pan-Africanism, whatever. They want to be royalty. That's why I don't like that. Y'all are, listen, if you know me, you know that's why why is this thing? I thought I put it on silent. I ain't never seen such a thing. But you have to wonder why certain things and certain kind of conversations, why do you cast yourself as royalty? I've told y'all before, part of the reason I don't like and I don't care for king and queen is because there were peasants. And usually kings and queens are taking advantage of the people that are underneath them. So I don't like that language. But he called himself the Prince of Pan-Africanism. And he went on there and there was some stuff about ADOS and I don't know much about that. Okay, fine. You didn't defer. That's fine. But let's get to the next thing, shall we? Like I said, I don't want to be in here too long, but let's move on to the next thing fairly quickly, if you do not mind. Why did this man who has been going around, ladies and gentlemen, why did this man who has been going around asking all of you for your grit money, why did the man who wants your grit money come out and say that he don't believe in reparations? He wants your grit money. Now, first of all, you see how much we spend in grits? First of all, there's a problem with that whole thing. We spend so much in grits, and you could just give me the grit money. Well, first of all, sir, Negroes are not the only people who buy grits. That's first of all. There are other people who, besides Negroes, who buy grits. So the whole grit money thing was stupid. But you should know by the fact that you have been having to ask Negroes for over a decade for money to build one school that we don't have it. Oh, they love you to death, but they just don't have it. And you have shamed people. Look at what they gave to Zimmerman. They only gave this to me. Why I don't get more money? Why they didn't give me more money? I deserve more money. I'm the prince of Pan-Africanism. You should have given me your grit money. I'm the prince of where the grit money at. I'm looking through everybody's wallet and everything for the grit money, ladies and gentlemen. Where is the grit money? You got in the jelly money for me. He didn't ask for the jelly money, but if you ask for my grit money, I think you're coming for my jelly money, for my Pillsbury Doughboy money, for all my money. But I don't have, because I don't have wealth, because that wealth was plundered. But Umar came in and said the same thing that people like, that other people have been saying, is that, and I'm going to tell you exactly what he said. I'm not one to kind of come into these things. I wrote it down. Hold on 1 second, please. I wrote it down somewhere. I hope I don't have the wrong notepad, because I sure did write it down. I do hope I don't have the wrong notepad. Ooh, what was I talking about right there? Something about a little white baby? I don't know what that was about. I don't know which one that was about, child. I was talking, though. Where did I write it at? Oh, I think I have it. Ladies and gentlemen, because I want to make sure. I couldn't do what I wanted to do because it was a Patreon episode. So that's behind the paywall. So you don't want to get in no kind of trouble with that. So I tried not to do that. Where I put it? Lord, I must have put it somewhere else. Well, goodness gracious, where did I put the notepad? Now that don't make no sense. Huh? Well, listen. He said, I can tell you what he said. He said, our problem, ladies and gentlemen, Umar was telling us what our problem is. He said, our problem is basically a fixation with money, a fixation with wealth. That's our money. That's our problem. And what happens when that is your problem is everything becomes about money. Now, if you're talking about, he was talking about Deion Sanders in a way that I've talked about Deion Sanders, in a way that Antonio, that he was talking about in the way that ADOS has talked about Deion Sanders, you run for the money. But then you go and you mix up wealth with redress. I think I found my notebook. I think I found my other notepad. I did. So let me say it point by point. He said, we're so addicted to money. It was right behind me. If it was a snake, it would have bit me, like the old people say. This is Umar now. This is what he said. We're so addicted to money. And I agree in terms of people like Deion Sanders. They run off just to get the bag and manipulate us. Yes, but you have to separate two things. You can't redress and plunder. Listen, if money was taken out of the system, if money was taken out of our communities, if our communities were plundered and literally robbed like what you see in places like Tulsa, if that was the case, then you have to replace that money. You have to replace that wealth. That's just what has to happen. That's not something that is up to me. That's not something that is up to you. That is something that is necessary. And that is something that happens for all other groups. When the Holocaust survivors and their heirs, when the got reparations, when the Japanese got reparations in this country and their heirs, I brought it up that it wasn't just them. They made a space for their heirs to get it as well. When that happens, nobody says y'all care too much about money. Nobody says that, but that's what he said. And then he said that we're ignoring how we're making ourselves look. So us asking for demanding reparations is making us look bad. That's what he said. Those are his words. You can go check the Patreon. You can sign up and sign off and sign back and then not renew. Whatever. I wish I could have taken all the clips, but Joe Budden in them. He was on the Joe Budden podcast. Joe Budden he don't play around with them clips. So you're not going to risk my stuff putting anything behind a paywall. But he said that we're ignoring how we're making ourselves look because we're so obsessed with money. That's what he said. And then he said, looking for justice, instead of looking for justice, we're looking for money. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, justice is money. If the thing that was stolen was money and wealth, that has to be repaid. That's not, and I don't care how I look. Like, I don't care how I look to white folk. I just don't. I do not care. It does not matter to me. It does not matter to me how I look to white folk. No, I don't care. I shouldn't look any different than the Japanese. I shouldn't look any different than anybody else who's gotten reparations. I shouldn't look any different than how we look when we were promised 40 acres and a mule. I should look no different, but that's what he says. We should be careful how we look. He says it's the same thing with reparations. I don't want no effing money for slavery. Those are his words. If you want to see it, it's up on my Twitter. Those are his words. Now, I don't want no effing money for slavery, but you want my grit money. See, there's something not right with us because we should, at this point, at least sort of understand that the reason it's been over a decade for this man to open one school is because we don't have the wealth that we need. Second of all, we should see that this is unfeasible. If it's taken 13 years to build one small school, we can never build whatever you're talking about building in terms of our institutions or whatever, because if it took you that long to build one school, how long do you think it's to get two? Okay, how long to get a grocery store? Okay, how long to get a bank? Okay, how long to get everything we need? See, America is about scale, ladies and gentlemen. It's about scale. How quickly can you get enough money to scale? Don't nobody want to hear about your little one school that you finally getting the lights hooked up to after 13 years. That should be enough to tell you that your way of thinking don't work. If it's taking you 13 years to get one little school, it should be enough to tell you, hey, something else is broken here. Unless all of who you are and all of what you are is anchored in something that don't make sense. Who you are is anchored in Pan-Africanism, and that's part of the problem with you. And that's part of the problem with people like you. You're anchored in something that does not make sense. Do-for-selferism and Pan-Africanism, you have merged those two things together and believe that they make sense. They do not. We've been doing Pan-Africanism ever since King got killed. In the 70s, wearing dashikis, you had Jesse Jackson all over with dashiki. We've been doing that for at least 50 years. And you Negroes will not get a clue. Instead, you want to show up and say, oh, varieties of dumb stuff. Sound just like Ron Daniel. Shout out to Dap. We're going to go back to Africa. He said something about that too. Mr. Donations, donations, donations. Donations, donations, donations. Donations, donations, donations. You're talking to a wealthless group. Way before COVID, Antonio Moore told you that we were at 1,700. A black family was worth 1,700. That's not even a good suit. And you talking about donations, 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 but you don't believe in reparations. And y'all want to tell me, too many people want to tell me, you want to go back to Africa too? We're going to talk about you, Dr. Umar, because you said something else in there about going back to Africa. You just like him. And then people want to tell me, well, Yvette, I don't understand why you don't want to work with Umar. Work and do what? Work and do what? What am I supposed to do with somebody who wants to go back to Africa and believes what he believes? Please tell me what I'm supposed to do. I am asking. This is scattered. Listen, I don't want, and see, let me tell you, y'all got to stop letting y'all ego get in the way. I don't want no money. I don't want no money. Who don't want wealth? What kind of fool, and I'm going to say it, what kind of fool comes out of taking 13 years, is it, to build a school and then says, I don't want no wealth because I'm afraid of how it's going to make me look. Y'all get too caught up in what people think and feel about you. And that's where he is. That's part of where he is. We were addicted to money. No, it's not about being addicted to money. Wealth was stolen. Wealth is owed. This is not a Deion Sanders situation. And if you're unable to differentiate that, the problem lies with you. It does not lie with me. If you're unable to see the difference between what happened with Deion and what happened or what is happening, in terms of reparations. If you can't separate those two, there is some kind of learning problem that lies with you or some, and I don't think it's a learning problem. I think you're anchored in something that just does not make sense and is never going to make sense. And you're going to keep having us go through stupid stuff over and over again because you don't understand why that we are wealthless and why we're wealthless. And you should understand that given your own personal experience. Some of y'all, Dr. Umar John, you do not learn. You do not learn. And that's not the only thing he didn't learn about. Let me go to something else. Let me show you. So he said something else. He said a few things, but I'm only going to bring up a couple of them. He said churches. A lot of people who don't be inside of churches be talking about churches. I agree with the criticism of a lot of mega churches, but sometimes you get caught up in that and you don't look at smaller churches who actually do good work. And let me just say one other thing. There are a lot of small churches that do good work and feed people that Umar don't feed and care for people that Umar don't care for. And there are also a lot of Pan-Africanist schools already. Now, I'm not a fan of Pan-Africanism, and y'all know that. But there are a lot of Pan-Africanist schools already that y'all don't support. So in my mind, you're already just supporting a personality. There are Pan-Africanist schools that exist. I ain't seen none of y'all say, let's go and support this school. You want to support a personality. Just supporting the personality and not the work is part of the problem. But let me get back to the churches, shall we? He said churches should have three things. They should have banks, they should have gardens, and they should have schools. Well, let me just deal with, like I said, we ain't got to deal with this long. I don't even want to. I don't even want to kind of deal with this for no long time. But first of all, and if it were not the holiday season, I would bring up something that shows you, I think gardening is wonderful. I think every community should have a community garden. I support churches starting a community garden. I support Umar starting a community garden. Umar, what stopped you? You wasn't, the school wasn't here. What stopped you from starting a community garden? Right? But I support that. But what I'm saying, but the thing I don't support is any kind of understanding that makes you believe that a community garden will let us feed ourselves. We should be feeding ourselves fresh fruit. It will not replace your local Kroger store or Publix or wherever you are. It will not replace that. You are not replacing that. It's great to go out and pick your own tomato, I had some jalapeno peppers this past summer. They were delicious. They are not going to replace everything in my refrigerator. Wonderful to grow your own food as a supplement. So let me just bring up, but the thing that really got me, let me see, was the bank. We should have our own, we should have our own banks. We've been through this, and those of you who are here, y'all already know. Y'all don't need me to tell y'all y'all don't need me to tell y'all, because we already broke down years ago the problem with black banking. The problem with black banking, one of them is the people who deposit money into their accounts don't have no money. You need to get big deposits. Savings accounts are telling you now. Let me tell you what happened to me. I'm gonna give you a personal story. So I said, oh my God, I got to at least try to put something like some savings, like real savings. Like, they got 4.5%. Right? In some of these places where you can get that's a nice savings rate. I'm not going to mention the company, but it's listed everywhere you go as one of the best companies for a savings rate. A kind of a newer one too. So I put a little piece of money in there. It ain't much, but we are Siamese if you please. It ain't much, but you got to try to do something. So I do it. They send me a message. Miss Carnell. In order. I thought PayPal's wasn't up yet, JP. I went to PayPal and they said theirs was coming soon or something. But they said in order. Now, this ain't everybody, because I went and I did it with Amex and I was able to do it. But this was them. So in order to maintain one of the highest savings rate that is in the country right now, Miss Carnell, you need to, there's a stipulation that we want to make sure that you're aware of. You need to deposit in our savings account, savings, at least $5,000 a month. They said you need $5,000 a month to maintain your savings rate. What they're telling you is that big bank eat little bank. So if you want to continue to make this rate, top us off with a little 5. Top us off, Miss Carnell. We need another 5. Oh, well, I never. What you mean? What you talking about? You got me messed up. So wait a minute. I gotta have. So in order to keep this rate coming, I have to deposit 5 a month. And now it's not like that everywhere. I was able to, like I said, move it over to somewhere else and bing, bing, bing. But they're not playing. And even to somewhere else, they were like, you know that you it's like a CD. You can't touch it. In order to make money, you have to make money or not be willing to not touch it. Because we're going to use it for some stuff. We the bank. So listen, I say all that to say, when you're talking about black banking, you have to understand that banking, that people are putting in high deposits. Like that's what's happening, and your people are wealthless, so they're going to lose money. The bank loses money because it's just a place for transactions, and they have more people who are overdrafting and all of that because we are a wealthless group. I'm not going to go over. I could have did a whole nother show about this, but I'm not, because we've done shows about this before. They just manage transactions. Banks aren't supposed to manage transactions. Black banks are just managing transactions. Yeah, EA, they said no dipping. No dipping. I went in the other one to look at it. Because, when you a Negro, you just got to look at your money. Is it still there? They said, well, you can't take it out and move it. You lose it. You're going to lose it. I can't take nothing. Like, what if I need something, I got to have some money. Like in my checking. Oh, Lord. You can't have black banks. You can't have black banks because of black people. Which are really ADOS people. That's why. And even when you look at white banks, you look at the amount that went under. These are companies. Like, look at these banks that went under. We had a bunch of banking failures, and they were far more capitalized. They were far more capitalized than anything we have seen. Billions of dollars. We have not seen this with black banking, and you're not going to make it happen because you do not have enough money. You are working with pennies, Umar, and you don't get that money unless somebody gives it back, because that money was that people are passing down now in terms of inheritance. That money was built during a specific period where America was booming. You're not going to get that period anymore. Now, what you can do is get those reparations and use them not for a Gucci bag like Nicole Hannah-Jones, but you can use them to build and try to infuse wealth into your communities. That is your opportunity for that. Spending 13 years building a rinky-dink school should show you that. You should learn. If you were not married to the cult or religion of Pan-Africanism, you would have learned, oh my goodness, this is a problem. Oh, this should really teach you something, right? These are banks that fail. Look at the money though. Look at what these banks had. We don't have, our banks were in the millions. We have no $1 billion accounts. That's what it is. So I don't know what Umar was talking about. I just bring up a couple of other things. Banks are required to maintain, because they're talking about how this failed. See, one of the things that doesn't happen, people don't go look at what banks have and the banks that did fail, how they fail, or how previous black banks fail. Before you tell me that we need black banks, please go read Marisa Baradaran's book, right? Before you talk to me about that. Go read that. Go research how the banks that had billions failed, right? Go look at how much capital the black banks that recently failed. And go look at how much capital the ones that are here now, if there are any left, still have. They are woefully undercapitalized because the people who bank at them are undercapitalized. A lot of them don't even have like ATMs you can go to. So why in the world would I have to pay all these transaction fees to stick my card in something and get cash or whatever when you just don't benefit me in any way? Like a lot of stuff that's supposed to be black business calls on us to take an L in order to support the business. So I have to take an L and as a consumer, right? In order to give you business. I was actually at a quote unquote black business because I'm not sure what they are or whatever, but I was there early today and I saw a sign that made me want to go off. But I said, Yvette, you gotta keep yourself together. But the sign said, please support black business without asking for a discount. And I wanted to say, please be a black business without doing the black tax, which is that markup that they do. Please be a black business without doing the markup. But anyway, banks are required to maintain liquid assets that can be drawn on emergency. Such assets are generally safe investments like U.S. Treasury bonds. But when interest rates rise, the market value of existing bonds, let me move this aside. Let me move this a little to the side. Hold on a second. Boom. Goes down. And they're less attractive than newly issued bonds that pay more. So what does that mean, fam? I'll tell you. The longer the bond's so-called duration, the bigger the impact. Such fluctuations in value aren't usually a problem, as the bonds are meant to be held to maturity as backup capital, and not sold. But by the end of 2022, U.S. banks had racked up $620 billion of unrealized losses. And this had to do with the bonds and the treasury and the interest rate. You cannot mitigate that as a black bank. You just can't. There's nothing you could do. These banks failed because of that. You cannot mitigate that. For some banks, the losses became more than theoretical. They were forced to sell at those depressed prices to pay off depositors who were yanking money to profit from rising interest rates on market funds or treasury notes. So you had a bunch of new banks came to the table. Like even what somebody said in the chat, PayPal, a lot of new banks and stuff came to the table and said, hey, competition, we're going to give you a higher savings rate. So what people said was, hey, I'm going to take my money here. So that's a bunch of money flowing out of the banks. Banks with billions of dollars had a bunch of stuff coming at them at one time that they could not mitigate. But Umar is telling y'all that we as Negroes can do it because melanin and nappy hair is magic. They had invested more in bonds and other long-term assets than most big banks had, meaning they were hit especially hard by the Fed's rate increases. And they were more vulnerable to bad news. Depositors were quick to abandon them in favor of the biggest U.S. financial institutions, which had come to be seen as safer after being bailed out as too big to fail in 2008 and then tightly regulated. So, yeah. So, like, when stuff started getting iffy, people leave. Listen, when stuff started getting shaky, people left the smaller bank, and went where? To the bigger bank. Big bank eat little bank, literally. And so the small bank is left with a flea of money. And the same thing will happen there's nothing to stop that from happening to black banks after they say, hey, this is some stuff is happening or whatever. Cash flows leaving because of something that the banks do not control. Because what do for self is like it says, well, if we just manage stuff different, we just manage stuff right, we'll be all right. See, our problem is that we don't be managing stuff right. No, that's not the problem. The problem is there are a lot of things, and the only thing you mitigate that is with billions, if not trillions. Some of these biggest banks have trillions of dollars. Our banks be having millions. If people with billions can't compete, what do you think you're going to do? I know, Umar, you just talking. You don't know. You just talking. You just like to hear yourself talk. I watched the podcast, the Polo Man Ish, who he couldn't get a word in. He could get a word in while Umar was just talking, he likes to hear himself talk. And shout out to Wing Wang. I'm just gonna point out some stuff on Twitter too, because you gotta. Sometimes people get it right, and when you get it right, you get it right. And when he talked about, one of the things people have to understand is that Pan-African, he said, well, the church is taking a lot of things, taking a lot of resources. Yeah, I agree that some bad mega churches have taken a lot of resources. I also agree that this idea of Pan-Africanism has taken a lot of resources, and it's not just in terms of Umar, right? Y'all done sold a lot of dashikis. y'all done did a lot of stuff. You're talking about, well, you should have a school. Well, listen, you said the church should have three things: a school, a garden, and a bank, Umar. You were only supposed to have one thing, and you took $400,000. You've been raising money for 10 years, and you still don't have no school. Obviously, schools, even no matter how small they are hard. You don't have a community garden. You don't have a bank. Pan-Africanism takes your money, wastes your time. And yes, it does take your hope. Because people believe that once you marry do-for-selfism with Pan-Africanism, ooh, we cooking with grease. Now don't you see that thing sizzling? And it ain't doing nothing. Umar, let me tell you, Dr. Umar Johnson reminds me of when I was in college. When I was in college, this is how everybody talked. When I was in college, people talk like this. Well, we just, freshman year, we just get our stuff and, and maybe Africa, whatever. But we didn't even talk much about that. We had a lot of African students, and we didn't even talk much about that kind of stuff. But we talked. The do-for-self stuff was there. But eventually everybody grew up, and when people grew up, we didn't talk like that no more. Right? And people keep treating this as if it is some kind of serious conversation. It's not. I'm going to get to one other thing he said. It's a plethora of stuff in there that he said. It's not just reparations. He said we need a black party. I'm tired of y'all with this party stuff. Shut up. Shut up. Because you don't need a party. If you are the base, let me just say, if you are the base of the Democratic Party and they ain't treating you right, your vote counts. Right? We said Democratic down ballot last time, which means not the top of the ticket. Teach Trump and Biden a lesson. We don't like neither one of them. Too many of y'all let people scare y'all into voting. I said sometimes you got to take a short-term pain for a long-term gain. Right? I said that. Some people got scared about it. Okay, it is what it is. Some people got very afraid. Well, I don't know. The Republicans, and they're coming back with their chains and their whips or whatever. I don't know what I'm going to do. Lord help me. Okay. All right. Well, if that's the case. All right. But this black party thing, listen. One thing Negroes love to do because it makes them, especially these Pan-Africanists and these do-for-selfers, they love to reinvent the wheel. There'll be a wheel already there. You have parties in America that we have numbers. We could actually do something to change the way we don't need a new party. You don't need to go invent a new car. I like what Ford did, but I'm going to get a new car. I'm going to get some rubber and I'm going to get some. No, only thing you have to do is adhere to an agenda. At the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, we have an agenda. You don't need to go and reinvent nothing. You need an agenda that says, hey, this is what we want. ADOSfoundation.org. This is what we want. And this is when we want it. And you get them to sign up. You don't need a party for that. What's wrong with y'all? You don't have to go. Let's talk about parties for a second. Green Party is a party. Right? Green Party is a party. Right? Over the past several elections, our candidates in National Party have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get our candidates on the ballot. Every state has ballot access requirement political parties must meet. Numerous states mandate candidates meet a threshold to maintain that line. To meet requirements, we need volunteers to collect, petition, sign, phone bank, provide graphic design or written content, and many other various tasks. So what they're telling you is, as the Green Party that's been around, let me see how long the Green, since 2001, with a lot of white money flowing into the Green Party. They've been around since 2001, and they're telling you we ain't on the ballot everywhere. We need your help. And you're telling me about a black party when white people who love trees and oxygen are telling you that they're not getting on the ballot everywhere. They need your help. Y'all be letting Umar just say anything and run off because he says it loud. And, ooh, we love a good talker. And yeah, and yes, we need to do it. We got to do it. We got to do it right now. Right? No, it's a snow bunny revolution, whatever. And everybody, woo, hoo, hoo, hoo. And because somebody gave a good barbershop speech, you all in. He made some good points. I tell you, he did. He all right with me. Y'all sound like Uncle Ruckus. He really did. He sound like he's good. All right. I tell you, that boy right there can talk. Didn't make sense, though. Didn't make sense. You can talk. Does it make sense? I'm just asking. But let me just point out, like, this has not been the only time. I was going to come in here and do, like, before I saw that, because I watched it late last night. I watched that Joe Budden part late last night. And that thing was like, I watched the first half before that. That's where the ADOS stuff came up, and they moved real quick past it. And they said, that's the same thing as Tariqa, what? But I don't know. So I watched that. It was a part, for those of you who don't know, it was a part 1 and a part 2. It was 5 hours. It was 5 hours. Lord, it was 5 hours. So I watched the other half late last night, and that's when I saw him. And I was like, y'all wasn't going to put this other part out about him talking about he don't want to be bothered with reparations. He don't need no reparations. He just need to be the king of Pan-Africanism. The prince of Pan-Africanism. He's the most sought after speaker in the world. Maybe the history of the world. Lord. Y'all gonna let him get off? Something's wrong with my phone. I tell you, it's on silent and it just keep making noise. Let me try it again. Lord. People just be interrupting your show. But that's the Prince of Pan-Africanism, child. Talking loud. And he was folding up a cloth. He just kept folding up the same little paper towel that he was using for sweat. He get the same little washcloth. He just called, like, I use this for my glasses. He just kept folding it up. Then 2 minutes later, he would come. It's just the stuff I noticed, fam. He would just fold up the same little towel. What's going on? What are you doing? Prince of Pan-Africanism can't be folding up no towels like that. Let me go. But I am happy with what we've done. I just want to say we keeping the debate going about, ADOS and everything we're doing. Like we still doing what we got to do. I wanted to come in and talk about everything that we've done, but then this fool had to come and talk about banks, and he don't believe in no reparations, and I don't know what else he was saying. Let me say, and let me just say something else. I had it up here, but a lot of times what people do is that they get to be spoilers, right? So, like, if you're Dr. Umar, you get to be a spoiler. Like, if you're a third party, that's what third parties normally do, and they move the conversation. They shift the conversation. That's what they're supposed to do. You don't got to reinvent. Like, I really feel like, and this is just, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of these people, I tell you, are just scared. They're just scared of what happens in America. Umar said something else, and I didn't clip it up. I didn't clip it up because I didn't know. I forgot where it was because it was late and I was sleepy. So I forgot where it was. But he said, and this is the. I'm throwing this phone away. This is the last takeaway for me. Is that he said, and I want y'all to really think about this. I really want y'all. I really want everybody to really think about this. Umar said this. I ain't lying. Go check the pod yourself. I might try to find it if I'm strong Friday or something. But he said, the only thing I would leave the work that I'm doing in America, the only way I would leave the work I'm doing in America, the only way is if I could be president of an African nation. And to God. He said, the only way I would leave the work I'm doing today is if I could be president of an African nation. Ladies and gentlemen, That should tell you the problem. If you didn't understand it before showing up at this live today, that is the problem with Pan-Africanism. If you did not understand it before coming to this live show today, that should let you know that that's the problem. You would abandon us. Like, let's say we gave Umar all the money. Umar, go do your thing. We want you to do schools. We want you to do a garden, grow us some tomatoes and everything out there, some lime, grow us some turnip greens, all that stuff. You would give him that and he would abandon you for Africa. That's what he said. That's not me saying it. I didn't say nothing. I ain't said nothing. He said, I would abandon you for Africa. He said, I would be president. Now, first of all, so even if a small African country said, Umar, come here, what that lets you know is that he has no anchoring. He has no anchoring. He's scattered. He started this. He has no focus. He started this, and that's part of the reason he has a lot of problems he has. He has no focus. He started this whole enterprise about young black boys, ADHD, how they're treated in schools. That is a virtuous enterprise in my estimation. You're supposed to stay there. You ain't supposed to come here and be the Prince of Pan-African. You're supposed to stay in that lane and help those boys, because those boys have not been repaired. And it's not just with the school. Instead, you are offering your opinion on everything and saying that you will go be king or a president of Africa. In what part of your brain do you think an African country wants you to come there and be their president in a country that you do not know and have never known all your American life? What kind of delusion are you suffering from? You have a mental issue if you think an African country wants you to come. That's like asking a foreigner to come into your country and lead it. And you are a foreigner. These people are scattered. This is what happens when you are Pan-Africanist. You are not anchored in anything but melanin and kinky hair. And what would happen, even if Umar did, let's say Umar started doing something good and he was about to get reparations or something like that, it would be very easy to convince him, hey, Umar, come over here and work with us. Instead of being over there, you could be our president. He would be easily manipulated because his identity is not that of ADOS. His identity is that of an African, even though he's not. And so they would take advantage of that identity. So he is easily co-opted by somebody else because his identity is anchored in the wrong place because he is confused. You are not an African. You wearing dashikis does not make you African. You are an American. Africa is 54 countries. They don't even have any kind of solidarity between them. And you think you have solidarity there. And you would leave us to go over there and work for them because that's how you're anchored. That's why, let me tell you something. That's why anchoring is so important. That's why how you are anchored is so important. That's why ADOS is the only way. You have to be anchored in who you are. You have to be anchored in what happened to you after you arrived on these shores. You have been here too many generations to pretend like you have affinity with Africa. Now, that don't mean that they're bad people. I'm sure they're very nice people. Like, I'm very sure that, we all have some more than others, my little light-skinned egghead self. But we run the gamut in terms of complexion and as ADOS. We run the gamut. Some of us have a little bit more European, some of us have less, but that's just what it is. We're mixed. We didn't always make it that way. Some of that stuff was forced, but it is what it is. Some clocks you just can't unring. And I'm not European and I'm not African. Those two things may make up my genetics, but I'm not European and I'm not African, and I do not claim either one of those things. I am a unique amalgamation that occurred in America after we were sold here. And you can't claim me if you never sent no boats to come get me. You cannot do it. Not only did you sell me here, you didn't never send no boat to pick me up. So that's not who I am. I'm sure you all are very nice people. And people coming in talking about, oh, well, they're lying about that. They didn't do it. Yes, they did. Benin apologized for it. Yes, they did. Benin said, we sorry. And you said they don't. A whole African country has told you we sorry. And y'all around, you Pan-Africans around here saying that they didn't do nothing wrong. They apologize, you dodo bird. You don't apologize if you didn't do nothing wrong. What's wrong with y'all? This is a very lost and confused stuff that's going on. And at the end game for Pan-Africanists is really what Umar said. Is another thing that he said, well, I might have to go to Africa. I couldn't find that video. But there's another video where he said, I might have to go to Africa because these people, they're not going to, America, once I get started, they're not going to want me here. They're going to run me back to Africa. So I might have to leave. That's you just saying you're going to escape away. You want to go. If you want to go, my thing is just go early, not later. Those of you all who want to go back to Africa, just go. Ain't nobody holding you. You got to just go. The end game for all Pan-Africanists is to go back to Africa. That's always their end goal. That's it. And they're going to stall us until they get there. So until I can be there, I'm just going to stall and act like it ain't what it is. Well, nah, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to do for self, whatever. But, we got to go back to the motherland, fatherland, whatever. We got to put our pennies together. We can't. Y'all don't want to confront America, not really. And I think what needs to start happening is if you scared, say you scared. If you scared to confront America, just say you scared and we'll understand. We always understand. Everybody has always understood. Everybody's always understood when somebody got to go back to the car. Once it get lit. Yes, I understand. But if you scared, you got to just say you scared. You can't keep telling us, well, we can do it and what. You don't want to confront the most efficient white supremacist nation that this world has ever known. You don't want to confront it. That's why it's always do for self or go back to Africa. That's fine. But if you're scared, you got to start saying you're scared. Because you sound like you wasn't scared, Umar. You said you got to be ready to die and all this. But you got to be, if you believe that, you got to want to take it to Capitol Hill. Because that's where all the swords come out. You got to be willing to do it. If you just go talk, I'm going to go to Africa, I will leave you, African nation. Half of these people, to me, just want to be kings and dictators. I'm just saying. I didn't. It is what it is. That's just to me. Right? They just want to be kings and dictators. I just see it that way. And the stuff he said on the show was just stupid. And that probably wasn't all of it, but that's all that I took away. That's all that it was just, let me see if I it was just ridiculousness. It was just ridiculous. I don't believe no reparations. I don't want no money. Ain't no money ain't no money you can't repay me for what happened. No, of course there's not enough money to repay for people for the plunder. There's not enough money for that. You're right. There's not enough money for the plunder. Just not. You cannot pay for the suffering that people went through. You can't. You can't. There's not enough money, but there is money. And the debt is still owed. You really owe way more than we're asking for. But the debt is the debt. I can't pay for somebody's suffering and somebody's hurt. That doesn't mean I get nothing. Just because it's not going to be enough doesn't mean you get nothing. Listen, people get killed let me tell you how stupid this is. People get hurt and killed in accidents all the time. The insurance company for the person who did that can never repay you if you get paralyzed in an accident. They can't pay you. Like, your ability to walk is gone. They can never give that back to you. But when you get in the courtroom, they're going to decide what that's worth. They're going to say, because you were this old, and you're going to get more money if you were 25 and you were paralyzed in an accident and it was somebody's fault versus if you were 75 and get paralyzed in an accident, right? They're going to measure age, children, all kinds of things. There is a calculus for paying people when they have lost something that they cannot get back. They do it every day in courtrooms. And for Umar Johnson to get out here and pretend that is not the case is ignorant. It is moronic. And y'all have got to stop listening to people like this. Y'all have got to stop listening. It's great barbershop talk. And there's always some of the stuff was stuff that Antonio and I have said, like little bits and pieces of it. But you can't give me a 50-50 truth and then pie in the sky and me say, oh my God, that's deep. Oh my God, he said a word. No, you got to stop doing this. Is serious stuff. You got to read. You got to understand stuff. If you don't understand the American economy and how you have to be anchored up to the engines of wealth in this country, if you haven't read certain books in our book clubs, like, you will not understand this. Stop running away from books. They don't bite. Stop it. It's ridiculous. And listen, that's all I'll say on that. I thought it was utterly ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie about it. And I'm just disappointed. Because you can all, your granddaddy, your grandmama can make a good point. That doesn't mean that we should follow what they say. That doesn't mean we're not critical of all the bad points that they make. If you ask me, I thought some of the Umar made good points about gender at the end, right? Because psychology is his thing. He should stay there. I thought that's where he made good points, right? I thought that's where he understood kids, men, women, and the psychology. Okay, you're making some points. Stay there. That's your area of expertise. Please do not come into my lane. This is my lane. Politics has been my. When you were doing psychology of young black boys, I would never try to go and tell you how the diagnosis and what to do when your son gets an ADHD diagnosis, how to deal. That's not my forte. I would never do that. I just wish people would stay out of here. This is my forte. Stay over there. You don't get to run everything. You don't get to be everywhere. But that's what they do. But anyway, fam, give me a couple of minutes. I'm going to try to set up the phones. I think I knocked something loose, so I got to put it back together. So give me a few minutes, fam. I'll be back, and hopefully we can have the conversation. All right, fam. We are back. We are back. We are back. Let me see if I can get some of these callers in here. Do, 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 do. 708. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette, how are you?
All right, fam. We are good. How are you?
I'm well, Yvette. This is John from Chicago.
What's going on, John?
Ah, man, Dr. Umar has lost his monkey mind. I mean, you know, Yvette, anchoring is so important. That was Obama's problem. He was not anchored in anything that had anything to do with ADOS.
Mm-hmm.
And it was dealt. He didn't have any empathy for the plight.
Mm-mm.
Because it had nothing to do with how he lived.
Mm-hmm.
He lived a quite a different life, you know. And to hear Umar, Dr. Umar Johnson, you know, go figure that slave name he got for certain, right? Is it Fatunde, whatever he try to refer to himself as? Sir, you descend from slaves in the United States of America.
He's a king.
Period. Point. A pan half, yeah, whatever. In any case, I just like to say, we have been taught, and they've done a great job of making us hate government. for whatever reason. You know, when you try to talk to people, in particular, you know, black men, black women, hey, doc, you know, let's just, because we're not, let's get away from the flat blackness, from American descendants of slavery. They've just been taught, hey, government is bad. Government is bad. Taxes are bad.
Stop begging the white man. Stop begging the white man. You just got to stop begging the white man.
Exactly. But when your house is on fire, you don't want to get that water hose and put it out.
Get out there yourself.
You want the fire department to come and do their job, because that's what government does. You know, there's a 100-year project going on in Chicago to replace all of the lead pipes. The only entity with enough money to do that is the government. We need government. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, we tend to forget that these people didn't do all the great things that they claim to do. After 1929, the Great Depression, they were eating clay just like us. The government stepped in. The government stepped in and made a white middle class. Mm-hmm. It stepped in and it excluded us at the same time. And as a result of the government making them and all of the things that happened and people who became boomers and all of the selfishness of not wanting to pay taxes has us where we are today. Tattered to the bottom. And so it's necessary that someone like and again, I said it last time, let's just stop with the kidnapping. We were sold into slavery.
They asked him about that too. They asked him about that too, and he scared it off. It wasn't a real answer.
Of course, because how can you sell this mess if you're not willing to talk about or acknowledge it? We have to acknowledge it. But we forget timing. When Dr. Martin Luther King did the speech, as he talked about what America was doing for the immigrants who were coming into this country, not only that, you're teaching them this. Not only that, you're giving them this. Not only that, you're giving them this. While at the same time excluding us. I just think a lot of do-for-selfers are hooked on this Dr. Claude Anderson doctrine. They haven't been able to shake it. Like, they really believe that we could somehow come up with all of this stuff in an America that's done. America doesn't need any more businesses, Yvette.
No.
America is emerging into new foreign countries, trying to set their flag there and do the things that they've done.
Pause right there and let me say something real quick. I remember years ago I read this book called Plutocrats. And that was one of the points that they made. In the book, they said, we don't need you. Like the people who were trying to, multimillionaires, they were saying, we're not really looking at the American market anymore, because they said what you're saying. They said America has everything that America needs. So we're not looking to the American market anymore. We're looking to emerging markets because they're the markets that don't have everything. So continue. I'll let you continue.
Yep, and that is the simple fact, and I don't, because I'm tying the comments that shame on Dr. Umar Johnson for saying that. It's terrible that we could say what we want to say. We are their countrymen, they are our countrymen. We've never been a problem in this tumultuous relationship that ADOS has had with white America. But the bottom line is, we're here. This is our home. This is where we've been. And just because it's been bad doesn't mean that we can't be made whole as a result of what you and Antonio are trying to do. And no matter how much, man, this basketball stuff, the decadent veil, we just gonna keep it short and sweet. Mm-hmm. The decadent veil really has people believing that we have money. But Yvette, we had businesses. What did white America do? Burn them down. Mm-hmm. We had everything that they're talking about. We can pool our money together and do. We had it.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. You brought up a very good point, fam. And my point has always been, nothing is only as good as your ability to protect it, right? So you can build it. If they can tear it down, then what did you build? And in order to protect it, America, even the police in this country, they protect wealth. They don't have any obligation under the Constitution to protect people, to protect you from bodily harm. Remember, that was a Supreme Court case. They protect wealth in this country, and we have none. And so if you want to change our situation in this country, there's no way to do it without dealing with wealth. But go on, fam. I'm going to let you finish. I'm going to try to get to some more calls.
Well, we have to change our position from the bottom. That's why every immigrant coming in know that they can assimilate into whiteness, and we cannot. And when they stand before Congress, like you said, they stand before Congress for their own self-interest. We are not self-interested, and we feel guilty about wanting to stand up for what's best for us, and we've been here the longest, Yvette.
Absolutely.
I won't hold you longer, but this was just a powerful shame on Dr. Umar Johnson.
Yeah, got on a big urban platform and said, I don't believe in it. And what do you think that impact will have on people? Like, when you know that we're doing a reparations push, right? And you know we've been doing that for a few years now, for you to get on. And I think, let me tell you what I honestly believe. I believe a lot of people do stuff just because they're not leading it. They will spoil it just because they're not at the helm of it, right? And so for you to get on this we're doing this national push for reparations. You get on the Joe Budden podcast, which is probably the leading podcast for urban and especially Negroes, and you say, listen, I don't want reparations because of how it makes me look. What do you think the impact that has on the movement? Well, he doesn't care, because that's not his movement. So you can't talk to me about collectivism if you've never really reached out to me and said, hey, Yvette, I want to talk to you about reparations. I want to talk to you about why I disagree. I want to talk to you about some of the comments I want to make on the Joe Budden podcast. I want to have that conversation with you. If you're not willing to view me that way, and I have my own theories about why you're not, but if you're not willing to do that, and if you're not willing to have that conversation, then how am I supposed to view you as an ally? You just went on TV and did damage to like a movement that I'm trying to push to the next level. How in the world are you a friend to me? So stop coming to me and say, oh, Yvette, he said some stuff you can't believe in. The center of what we're doing, the core of what we're doing is reparations, and then we're adding, because it's necessary, a transformative black agenda. And he went in there and poured gasoline on it and set it on fire. And y'all want me to work with him. I think people who think about that, who think that should happen, are insane.
I agree. I'll say this in closing. Barack Obama did the same thing with Ta-Nehisi Coates. Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Just unbelievable. God bless you. God love you. God keep you for everything that you're doing.
Appreciate you, fam. I always appreciate your calls. You have a good one, all right? And you have a happy holiday. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Yvette.
No problem. You have a good one. Bye, fam. Going now to 617. 617, what's going on?
Hey, Yvette, it's Reggie from Boston. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself? Reggie, I'm gonna tell you something. I saw. I'm gonna tell you something about you. I saw you ducked off in that Joe Budden space. Twitter space.
Yeah. I saw it. I'm watching, and I'm saying, I'm like, what are they gonna say? Like, what's really going on? It's like I felt like jumping up there, but I took your advice that you said, that you ain't got to really be everywhere and jump in every conversation, and not everybody really deserves attention on that scale.
Well, I jumped in there, and
You see
I actually jumped in there too, and it was boring to me. And I was just like, I'm gonna jump out. I was just like, because I was like, I wonder if they're dealing with any of the serious things that he talked about, and they were just talking about BS. So I came right back out because I was like, look at Reggie. I'm like, I'm gonna jump in here, and I popped in and popped right back out. I was like, they just talking about trash, like. So.
Yeah, because I didn't stay in there long either, but like I said, I was trying to get a feel for what they were talking about, and I even checked out some of the conversation. And it's just Umar talking in circles. And when we really get down to it, because there's two things I want to talk about that Umar talked about. We're gonna use Umar's words, and we're gonna use Umar's statements as a metric of accountability and as a metric of progress. Two things. One thing is institutions, which we agree that we need to have. And another thing that he brought up on a number of occasions that was very interesting was the dangers of ego. But I'm going to get to institutions first. Now, when we look at the dictionary definition of an institution, which he says we need our own institutions, we need our own this, he says banks, he says manufacturing. He's speaking to institutions. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at an institution, like the dictionary defines it as the act of instituting, or an organization or establishment founded for a specific purpose, such as a hospital, church, company, or college. Here's a third definition: the building where such an organization is situated. Now, I would submit to you that Umar has been collecting money for a building where such an organization should be situated, but he has not established said organization. And the reason is because he feels like he should be able to scale. But the scale, but what's necessary to scale to match his ego does not exist within the Black community because of the wealth. And I said this I said this years back. When you're doing any kind of business endeavor or anything that involves finances, that you have to control for Blackness, control for the fact that we don't have wealth, control for the fact of the landscape that is before us, the barriers that are before us, and be strategic in deploying whatever little capital, be it actual capital or political capital or social capital you have to reach your objective. Now, what Umar is trying to do, because he says Prince of Pan-Africanism as in a global movement. So you are royalty for a global movement of Pan-African unity. By what right does Jermaine from Philly set himself up as royalty for the African world? So you are the prince. So you're putting yourself up there with people like Garvey who has limitations. We have critiques of him. So you put yourself up there with Garvey. You put yourself up there with Malcolm. You put yourself up there with Toussaint Louverture. You put yourself up there with Kwame Nkrumah. You put yourself up there with Sankara. You put yourself up there with Mandela. You put yourself up with all these people. Like, by what right and what have you built? What functioning institution do you have that speaks to your right to call yourself the prince of anything? You ain't even the prince of Philly. Let's keep it real, Yvette. Because if he were to control for Blackness, you have to scale that nonsense down. And instead of buying this big ass building in Philly, which is dilapidated, hasn't been renovated, nothing's going on, to maybe you buy a smaller office space or a smaller office building. So instead of 100 Black boys, hey, maybe I get a dozen in there. And you crank out 10, then you gotta maybe I'll do 10 the next semester. But here's what you have to do, Yvette. You have to undergird those Black boys with an environment like plugs and outlets, So you got to get out there in the streets of Philly and do politics. He is not built for that. He's built for tough talk. He's built for bravado. He's built for rallying people emotionally. But can you go into the streets of Philly and move the needle politically? And I submit to you that Umar Johnson is not built for that, because he has not built an institution. He has amassed money to purchase a dilapidated building, but there is no institution in which for that building to house. You see what I'm saying, Yvette?
I understand exactly what you're saying. And let me say one thing. During COVID, I said something. During COVID, I said this about Umar. I said, this is a great time. If your only goal, if it's not ego, if your only goal is educating black boys, and everybody's online now, this is a great time to bring kids online, because you don't have to have yet a brick and mortar school. You can bring them into your online school during the COVID epidemic, and then when you have to school, because they have a relationship with you, whatever, you get certified, I mean, you get accredited, whatever that means, you come in and then you do it that way. I said that was a great time to do that, but I said Umar won't do that because his ego is not fed by an online school. His ego is fed by a brick and mortar school.
Yeah, it's not fed by that, and he even mentioned that, Yvette, because that's why I said he would need to scale it down to maybe a dozen black boys, because he said, I don't want to do online because, you know, I need the black boys right there. I'm like, okay, all right, go to Philly, grab 12 of them. Mm-hmm. And if you want to put it in a brick and mortar, it just has to be a smaller brick and mortar. Mm-hmm. But no, the Prince of Pan-Africanism, the most requested speaker in the world, he's got to make something that the world can see. But his hood can't even see him. Like in Philly. And when we talk about ego, I mean, it's so crazy that like the money amassed doesn't go to repairs or to renovations, but he did have time to paint that school in the nice little yellow color, and on the side he's got the red, black, and green flag, and he's got a mural. I mean, again, this speaks to his ego. He's got Toussaint on there. He's got Marcus Garvey on there. He's got Frederick Douglass. And in the center is Umar Johnson.
Well, you know who else does that? You know who else does that? Mr. Tariq Nasheed has a mural with him in the center as well. These people have huge egos.
Exactly. And that was another point I was going to make, you that because these guys are not building institutions. These people are building monuments to their ego. This FDMG Academy, it's not an academy to teach black boys. Otherwise, he would have scaled it down, and you start where you are and you build from there. Because if you have that proof of concept, and these 10 black boys come out of your black.
Wait a minute, they said. Wait a minute, Reggie. Hold on one second. They said it's in Delaware or something. But go on. I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, it's like Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware. Now that sounded a little strange to me, because Delaware, you get to do a lot of funny stuff with corporations and corporate law, but that's none of my business, because he's supposed to be straight out the streets of Philly. But you know, whatever. But you have these people who are building monuments to their egos as opposed to institutions. So here you have Umar Johnson with the so-called academy, a monument to his ego. Not one black boy has been taught through that institution. You have Jay Morrison with the legacy, with the so-called Legacy Center, a monument to his ego. All the money's gone, nothing accounted for. Tariq Nasheed, a so-called institution, a monument to his ego. It's now a juke joint. The only institution, the only functioning institution that I see with a proof of concept that has produced results with the people that they have activated on the ground is the ADOS Advocacy Foundation. Mm-hmm. Am I lying, Yvette?
No, everything, everything from the OMB to the retraction, everything. But hey, go strike oil in the ground.
Now, Yvette, we're going back to the definition of institution: an organization or establishment founded for a specific purpose. ADOS Advocacy Foundation, an organization or establishment founded for a specific purpose. Because you see these people go all over the place. Like ADOS stays on target.
a specific purpose: reparations and a transformative black agenda.
That's it.
But here comes Jay Morrison with the corner classes one day, the buy the block the next day, the preacher the other day. Then here comes Tariq. Cartoons on Monday, a juke joint on Tuesday, a documentary on Wednesday. Here comes Umar Johnson. Psychology for Black Boys on Monday, most requested speaker on Tuesday, a failed academy on Wednesday. An institution is established for a specific purpose, and there is no specificity in the purpose of any of these people I just mentioned, except for the ADOS Advocacy Foundation. So if we're going to talk about building institutions, and we're going to talk about Black-funded institutions, funded by Black people and powered by Black people power, we have to interrogate what we mean by institutions. Are we talking about institutions, or are we talking about something to satiate our egos, or some kind of salve or balm or opiate for the fact that we do not have wealth in the richest country in the world? We got to get serious about institutions.
I agree. Thank you, Reggie. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you. And somebody said, what is that photo? I think that's how Umar views himself. I think that's how they all view themselves. As just like kings, like it's kind of like Reggie said, like kings sitting on a throne. And I feel like Umar needs the picture. I feel like he needs the picture of him surrounded by like 1,000 grateful Black boys, right? And that if that doesn't happen, he can't do the school. But like if your goal is just to educate them and help them, you could do it with 1. You could do it with 2. You could do it with 5. But like you don't feel like a prince if that's the case. And they really have this delusion that they're African princes and stuff. Like I believe something psychological is going on here. I've said before. Somebody said in the chat a cult. But I do believe that Pan-Africanism is if it's not a cult, it's at least a religion. It's definitely not political. Because one thing that you see is that Umar doesn't have a way forward. Nothing that he said on that couch was anything that we could do to move us forward. It was all dreamscape stuff. That's what it was. And he doesn't have a plan. I remember telling people in 2019 that Tariq doesn't have a plan. And now he making cartoons about bears with big booties. Right? And they look girly, like girly booties. And it's a bunch of men watching a girly booty bear. So and the bear's name rhymes with coochie. So I don't know. It just all seems very odd to me. But let me go to the next call. I'm going now to I'm going to 205. 205. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Oh, what's going on, Yvette?
What's going on with you?
Joshua from Alabama.
Hey, what's up with you? How you doing?
Yes, man. I've been doing fine. It just raised my antennas when you had titled this video and showed that clip about Dr. Umar trying to belittle ADOS and the reparations movement for Americans who come from the lineage of slavery and Jim Crow. Now, I kind of noticed that, they got the Abuja Proclamation, ABUJA Proclamation, that was held by Pan-Africanists in Nigeria. Right, it's a reparations proclamation held by Pan-Africanists in Nigeria.
Well, I think it was Ghana, but go ahead.
Okay, but I could be wrong on the country. But what I'm saying is that he didn't try to knock that, right? I didn't hear him knock all the foreign aid those African countries did or anything like that. He tried to morally shame us because Black Americans want to go and get reparations, which has a precedence, right? From Special Field Order 15, a promise that the United States made that they haven't made good on, and we just want the United States to make good on their word. But he tried to morally shame us, but the Abuja Proclamation, he didn't speak, if I'm saying it right, he didn't speak against that. He did not say anything about all the foreign aid that African countries get from the United States. And the reason I think he doesn't go on the campaign trying to morally shame them for receiving help from the U.S. government, because it's going to mess up all the money he get when he get invited to speak to those different forums. And the last thing I want to say, because I'm going to keep it short, it pointed out to me, it raised my antenna when he tried to diss us, trying to go after reparations. But another thing I would like to know, did they give any real pushback when he tried to do that? And I'm going to mute up and I'm going to listen.
Who give any pushback? Who give any pushback?
Joe Budden or anybody.
No. The pushback was doing, if y'all, if you got the white women. Yeah, that was the big fight. She from Portugal. Well, wait a minute. And somebody said, like, Imani, who probably made the best case and was the best potter on that entire episode, said that, like, listen, like, what about the people who you don't want him to date the Portuguese, but what about the people who are descendants of African slave traders, right? And that's that conversation exists because of ADOS. And then that's when ADOS was brought up into the conversation, but we were also brought up in with that other man's grift, which was crazy to me. But everybody did chime in ADOS at the end. They were like, ADOS, that's ADOS. Yeah, everybody knows what it is. And so, yeah, like, that was, and shout out to E-Money for bringing that into the conversation. That's a great point. Like, that's the point we've been trying to make. You can't tell this white man, like, he can't date somebody because they come from people who long time ago, the Portuguese, who were involved in the slave trade, but you can date somebody who sold you directly for umbrella. That don't make no sense. So he didn't do a good job.
And see my thing is, Yvette, that, because I heard that part about the interracial dating, and I'm used to Umar going on that tangent, right? But the thing I noticed is, he said that we shouldn't depend on any help from our government. But he doesn't say anything about Africans immigrating to the United States. He doesn't say anything about all the foreign aid that the United States send over there to Africa. But when we try to make the United States stay true to its word, when it promised to give us after the Civil War, all of a sudden it's a problem.
I
and like I said, it takes a special type of food to donate to Dr. Umar when Umar is against reparations. I'm like,
I appreciate you.
I tell you, I donate to him when I get my reparations money.
I appreciate you, fam. I appreciate you, fam. You have a good one.
Happy holidays.
Hey, you too. Happy New Year. And look, let me just say this. He's right. America promised African nations, what was it, $55 billion or something, when they came to that summit in 2022. And they recently did a whole thing about how they're going to make Biden's, if you go look at Biden's fact sheet, about how they're making good on the money we said we're giving Africa, as the African countries. Biden it's up at whitehouse.gov that we're making good on the promises. America's making good on the financial promises to Africa. But in this country, Umar is telling you, great point, fam. Umar is telling you that we can't get money, though. Like, when we get money, it's wrong. But when countries come over here and get money, African countries, it's not a problem. Ciao. Anyway, I'm going to 614. 614, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello?
Hey,
Can you
614.
hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Hi, it's Felina Farley. I'm the National Green Party Black Caucus co-chair. I was chatting in the chat before I got on. I'm so glad you got me because I am really sleepy. I had a long day. I did overtime and everything. Okay, so I just wanted to put out an APB because this thing about like not having any like real solutions to how to get reparations, it frustrates me so much because we've been waiting for this moment of people realizing like what solutions are and how to break out of the system and the stranglehold that is upon us just to get reparations. But just to feedback on what real feedback is, since 2017 or 18, we've been getting so much feedback from ADOS, like way at the beginning, about updating the reparations plank on the Green Party's platform. And it wasn't like a real serious critique. It was more like, hey, you got everything written together, and you need to like have like boom reparations and boom black agenda and like section breaking. And for me, that's like, well, that's a good critique. I don't see that as an issue, but it just took me a while to actually get it. So right now, I just wanted to say that if you want to help review the update to our reparations plan, to actually put that section break in there that ADOS has been asking for a long time, about separating the reparations and the black advantage, two separate sections.
Okay, I hear you.
Please connect with me, because I know that was a big issue, and I'm finally getting to it.
Okay, no, I appreciate you. Make sure we all know in the chat or wherever where to reach you. So, or your Twitter or whatever somebody wants to use. So I appreciate the update.
My Twitter is my first name, but yeah, I'm in the chat. But yeah, my Twitter's my first name, Felina. So I'm around.
Okay, I appreciate you. I don't want to keep you too long, 'cause I know you're tired, but I appreciate you calling in and let us know what's going on. Thank you. I appreciate you.
I know. I just wanted to follow up everybody. Y'all been bugging us.
No, but I appreciate the follow up.
Get that done finally, you guys.
Well, and follow up is responsiveness, right? So we appreciate the responsiveness, and that's what's supposed to happen. Like, hey, I got to it. I want to let y'all know I got to it. So I appreciate that. So, and I hope the people do too. So I thank you for calling in though and letting us know on air. Appreciate you.
Hey, no problem.
Now you get to sleep.
All right, I'm going to
Have a good one. Bye-bye. I go into my, appreciate her calling in. Go into my, and letting us know that. My next call is 601. I'm trying to get to as many people as I can. 601, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Yvette?
Good. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. This brother said out of Mississippi.
Okay, what's going on?
Look, I get so tired of hearing Dr. Umar talk about that school. Oh my goodness, I've heard it for years. It is so annoying. He must be from the South, like in Mississippi and Alabama. You hear that a lot. It's about the schools. You got to build these schools and this and that. Mississippi, we have plenty of schools, but yet we still the poorest state. Like, it's so ridiculous. I get so sick and tired of hearing that. And he's been preaching that for, I know it's been like since 2011. But anyway, I definitely agree with you with the banking. If I invest $300, I'm not going to get that much in return. It's just that simple. So we do need policy. We need effective policy put in place. We need the reparations.
Absolutely.
So I love your show and keep doing what you do.
Appreciate you, fam. I appreciate you calling in from Mississippi. Appreciate you. You have a good one. All right, now. Bye. Let me just say this, it's also the case. It's also the case that, and I don't know if people really understand this, but it's also the case that talking about the school for years takes air out of the room in terms of other political stuff that we could be doing. Because all you talk about is school. Umar got school. He gonna get to school. What you think about school? Him and Tariq, they fighting about school. People say he a scammer. He not a scammer. Oh, he owed up with school. So we've been talking about this stuff for over a decade. So it's a lot of stuff that we didn't talk about because we're talking about Umar in school. Like, so it's just like stuff takes political air out the room. Like, how many of y'all saw all them reparations rallies they had the last 2-3 years? Wasn't nothing ever gonna come of them, but everybody was rallying. Donate money to the rally. We gonna be at the rally. We gonna get it popping. We gonna hop and jump around. We gonna do all that kind of stuff. We gonna spin around. We gonna live stream. You gonna get to see it. We gonna be in D.C. And there was no plan. There was no plan for anything political to happen. There were not even any press releases. They didn't reach out. They didn't build relations. It was just a bunch of stuff to take air out in the room to get people excited about nothing. And that's what I'm tired of. We have to get to a point. Everybody has to get to a point where you can look at that thing and see it is nothing. It is nothing but a way for people to say they did something. You did not do something historic. What King did when getting 250,000, I think it was, people down there, he had a whole political apparatus that was showing him, look at how many people I can bring, look at what I can do. And if I can get these many people to march on Washington, what do you think? What do you think I can do in this country? It was a show, it was a flex of a muscle. Like these people are doing that for this other stuff. They're doing it purely for ego. It's a lot of purely for ego stuff going on. Here, I 443. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, this is George from the DMV. And I want to start off by saying, does anyone remember when Dr. Umar Johnson got he had like $700,000? Well, like half of that went to PayPal. So he never had enough money to buy the school in the first place.
What you doing? You moving shelves or something? What you doing over there? You building?
Yeah, so also, do you remember over the summer the San Francisco banks, and when Biden said that we're not going to help them and they deserve failure, and then Biden said the next day, Biden was like, well, we're going to bail out all depositors to like infinity, so no matter how much money, we're going to back you up. Yep. Absolutely. Did you know that, I think you shown it, Yvette, that there was one of the oldest black banks in America. It got, it went down with the mortgage crisis in 2008, and Obama refused to save it. And last thing, you just showed this too about Dr. Claude Anderson, how he borrowed this like $800,000 from the black bank in Maryland. They only had $200 million in his capitalization, but they had to chase him all around the state. Yeah. To get that money back for the mafia business that failed. That's all I got.
Thank you for I appreciate you. I remember that everybody got mad because nobody has sympathy for the nobody has sympathy. Thank you, fam. Nobody has sympathy for best of luck on them shells. Nobody has sympathy for the black bank that Claude Anderson, like they had I maybe it all worked out, but nobody had sympathy for the black bank who was chasing Dr. Claude Anderson. It was why you gonna bring it up? That man did good. Listen, this is a bank that's undercapitalized, and he thought he could do tilapia. Of all things, tilapia. You thought you could do the fish market. Anyway, he was, I think y'all remember I did a Claude Anderson show, and I said the bank was chasing him around. They've been looking for him. They've been like, we loaned you money to do this business. Obviously, the business didn't work out. Well, now the loan, like what happened with all the money or whatever. So yeah, the tilapia business. So all the, sometimes do for self for people. They try to do for selferism and it don't work out and they take off running. That's the same thing Boyce did with the Jay Morrison stuff. Came in there, blessed it, and then said, I ain't had nothing to do with it. That's just my friend. That's my friend. That's just my friend. They my friend. I ain't had nothing to do with that. No, you came and said you had looked over all the financials and all that stuff like a PhD in finance should do. And then when it came to time, hey, what happened to the financials? You tried to run. People these do for selfers go do for self, and then they fail at it. And then when you say, hey, you failed at that thing you were trying to do, oh my God, I can't believe you gonna bring up. I can't believe you finna. Oh my God. Yeah, that's what happens. Anyway, let me go to my next call. I am going to 347. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind? (347) Can you hear me? 347. Going once. Going twice. All right, 347. I think you have left. I just developed accent just that quick. You see how quick you just do messed up stuff? 404. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette. It's Renee calling from Atlanta. How are you?
Doing pretty good. How you doing?
I'm good. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you too.
So I wanted to piggyback on one of the callers earlier. I've said this in a past show, but I'm going to say it again. Black American people, ADOS people, pay more of our salaries in taxes, and we get the least return on our taxes. Do not listen to anybody telling you or trying to shame you or guilt you into not demanding more for your taxes. How in the hell are we supposed to survive in this country if we don't get any sort of repair, whether it's land, whether it's money, whether it's other resources? How are we supposed to survive in this country when the average rent is what, a couple thousand? When houses in Southwest Atlanta on average are anywhere from $350,000 to $500,000, if not more. How the hell are you supposed to survive in this country? And I used to be into, like, I listened to Pan-Africanism a long time ago,
But when I started really looking at things for how they were, I had to walk away from that because the math wasn't matching. And I saw multi-billion-dollar budgets when I worked in government. So please don't say they don't have the money. They damn have the money. I've seen it. I've counted it. Stop listening to these people. We not gonna not get reparations because of other people. We gonna not get reparations because of people that look like us, who are born in this country, who are willing to sell away their birthright.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Thank you, fam. You said a word. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me just say this. And then I'm gonna try to go to one last call. 415. I'm coming to you in just 1 second. Give me a second. We are going to fool. It is, I feel like if it doesn't happen, it will be because like we have too many people who have this delusion. And I said before that Pan-Africanism is holding our reparations hostage, right? Every other country is doing it specifically. Like they have a specific, CARICOM has a specific cost. Every other country has a specific cost. Brazil is talking about the specific cost for their country. No other country is saying everybody black. Like this is something that we're allowing to happen here. And these ADOS Pan-Africanists are complicit in making sure that we don't get reparations unless all black people get it because they believe themselves to be Africans, but they want to, they feel like they need to build up their African bona fides. And I'm not a true African unless I take care of Africans. I'm not a true African unless I put Africa first. I'm not a true African unless I identify and make sure my African brothers, and it is this thing that you identify as something that you are not, right? You could identify as a puppy all day and bark around, but that's not who you are, and that will never be who you are, right? So there is a delusion about who you are in terms of your identity that is getting in the way of politics, that is getting in the way of you doing something good. And so they everything that the dress, the cowrie shells, and we've all had bad ideas about this stuff. You want half of the stuff I did when I was in my 20s or whatever was, oh, Africa, oh, because Howard messed me up, but like Howard University. But we've all been there because this country is designed to make us kind of feel that we are underneath someone, right? As opposed to being ADOS, we stand on our own 2 feet, and the people who come to this country after us, they owe us because we paid something for them. Not we owe you because you're the real African. What that mean? Like, what that mean? So I'm going 415. You're gonna be my last call. 415. What's your name? Where you calling from? And what's on your mind?
Hello.
What's going on? 415.
San Francisco?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, I was going to say, I hear people throwing that term around Pan-Africanism, and I don't think they realize what they're talking about. Africa is a big continent. Where specifically are you talking about interacting or doing any business with? Whatever place you start interacting with, okay, you got to be able to communicate with each other several different ways. Verbally, in writing, you got to have the communication equipment. You got to have about the same morals and values, of the same culture. All that's got to coordinate, okay? What is each person's level of integrity? How much sacrifice and commitment are they willing to put in together? And I know what I'm talking about because I got up and pulled that with South Africa, okay? I flew out of South Africa. That's an 18-hour flight. If we leave here, then you got to land. The plane's got to land someplace else. You got to get off and fly another 9 hours to get down to South Africa, okay? And I had been in communication with them when I got there. There were so many communication barriers when I was in South Africa. This is an English-speaking company. It has computers and printers and stuff like that, but I noticed I was spending more and more time talking to white people than I was the natives.
Yeah, because that's who you... Yeah.
I ran across natives. Yeah, I ran across natives who didn't speak any English at all, okay? Then when it comes time to interacting financially, there's a currency difference. We're with the dollar system. They're with the rand, okay? So it had to be all a conversion, okay? Then if y'all decide that y'all going to do any type of business together, okay, now, how's that merchandise going to get out the place? If you're talking about a small amount, okay, it might be cheaper just to fly it, and it's got to go through customs, and you got to be able to get the stuff out of customs. A lot of these custom places, they'll get your merchandise, and they won't notify you that your stuff is there and you got to pay some taxes on it, okay? If you're dealing with a large amount, it's probably going to be cheaper to bring it over by the ship, okay? It's going to land on a dock someplace. It might have to be forklifted across the dock someplace and stored, and that's going to cost you money. You may have to get a custom broker to pull all that stuff from the dock out of custom and bring it to you, and that's going to be money, okay? Then once you get it here, now what's it going to sell for? How many customers are you going to get? So that's something to think about.
Yeah, that's something to think about whenever everybody.
Well,
that's something to think about when everybody says I'm going to do business with Africa. Africa isn't set up to do business with the West. Like there are countries that are set up to do business, like China and India, that are set up to do business with the West. Africa isn't set up. You remember? Did y'all remember when Sean King said he was getting sweatshirts? He was charging like $150, $200 for sweatshirts. He was talking about it was coming out of Swahili. Not Swahili. That's the language. I mean, what's the country that speaks that? Gosh, what's the name of that country? Well, anyway, he said it was coming out of there. That's where the church was coming from. And I don't know how that worked out. But I say that to say, like, it don't make no sense. Go on, fam. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say now, I get with South Africa. They have similar communications, at least with the white people, similar communications and shipping. You can get the stuff through FedEx and places like that, okay? Now, these other places in Africa, I say to myself, well, how you going to get that stuff out of there? And if it comes through customs, how you going to get it out of customs? Okay, that's something to think about. And like I said, so I hear people talking with Pan-African, I'm like, what are you talking about? I thought it was interesting when Marcus Garvey was talking about Pan-Africanism, and I read about the man, but I couldn't figure out what part of Africa he was talking about. And a Pan-African movement to do specifically what? Some commerce, get some type of economic stuff together. Okay, where was this mysterious merchandise supposed to be coming from? How much was it going to cost? Did anybody here want it when it gets here? Who's he supposed to try to deal with in this Pan-African movement of his? So his whole Pan-African stuff was just serious to me.
He never went to Africa. Garvey never went to Africa. He did all that stuff. And he ended up dying in London or whatever he was. That's crazy. Negro history is crazy. We be doing some crazy stuff. We did some great stuff, but some of this stuff, this Pan-African stuff, when you look at it, it's the most tomfoolery of all the stuff we did.
But, Pan-Africanism is a little bit more than you dropping down there on a vacation and shaking your butt and then come back here. Oh. It's more than that, honey. It's a lot of work, sacrifice, commitment. It could take years, et cetera, et cetera. So when I hear Mr. Umar Johnson talking Pan-Africanism, I'm saying to myself, what? Go down there and socialize? Is that what he's talking about? Or what's he talking about?
And the thing is, like, even with socializing, it's like you said, a lot of people don't speak the same language. I've been there, very nice people, but a very strong accent. And you can find that anywhere. But people say, well, you can find it anywhere, and you can. But you all are telling me that we're the same. I'm telling you that we're not. And you can see that. Like, you experience that. Like, when you go there. Like, when you go there, that should be the thing that lets you know, okay, like, we're a different people. We're a Western people. And what we have in common is melanin hair and whatever. Like, that's what we have in common. Like, that doesn't build anything necessarily. So.
Well, another thing when you get to Africa, it's divided up into tribes. Here, all the Afro-Americans, whether they're light, dark, Christians, Muslim, we all see ourselves as African-Americans. Okay, we all had a similar experience together, etc. You get to some parts of Africa, they got all these different groups, and they don't communicate with each other, they're rivals. They're not together like we are. Mm-hmm. Here people are talking about Pan-Africanism, but we're ahead of the diaspora. Why are we breaking our necks to step down and start dealing with people who are not as together as we are? And a good example is everybody's copying us. Mm-hmm. They're copying our hairdos, they're copying our style of clothing, our swag, our weed. They're even copying our weeds, okay? So I'm saying to myself, so when people talking about this Pan-Africanism, I'm saying to myself, well, we're ahead in the African diaspora. When I got to South Africa,
let me say one thing about that hair thing you just mentioned. Something is happening. Now, I said I might grow my little fro out and make it long and luxurious, right? And why go and look at like just braiding, right? Let's see what stuff is. And like at least 70% of the braiding says African braiding shop now. When did that happen? How did I miss that? How did I miss all the braiding shops are African now? Where did I miss that at? Because when I was young, it was all of us doing braiding hair. What's going on? I'm sorry, I just want to say that, fam.
Well, honey, however you live in your hair, they'll be copying you. If you wearing a fro, you wearing braids or weave, they're gonna come up in our swag. So I'm telling myself, well, how's Pan-Africanism gonna hurt?
You right.
Okay, and if we're the head in the Africa, socially, politically, religious, here these people have whole countries. We're here behind enemy lines, and we're getting more done. And we're not divided all up in groups and tribes as they are.
Mm-hmm. And not somebody said it always was. You're right, fam. Let me just say that it wasn't always that way. Like it wasn't always that way. There used to be a time. There used to be a time that it was not all the shops. I don't know how old everybody is. I'm 40. I'm 48, I think. Yeah, it wasn't always that way, right? And it used to be. And before you even go to the people styling your hair, it used to be like your granny, your mama. You sit down there between their legs, and they do it, right? It wasn't always that way. It was never. I don't know. But go. I'm gonna let you finish. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you again.
Well, I'm saying, look, however you do your hair, they're copying us. Whether you're wearing a fro or a weave, they're copying us, okay? So when people talk about this African diaspora and African pan, I'll be like, what are you talking about? They have a whole country behind them. We have limited resources. We're behind enemy lines, and we're still ahead.
Thank you, fam. That's a great call. You're right. But chasing. But look, but chasing. We're ahead, but we're chasing people. Like what? Like we are a cohesive group, and we're chasing people. Like that's why I say it's an affliction. Please love us. Please view us as African. Please view us like you. Please accept us. Right? Tell us what you do. Oh, I love your clothes. And it's an inferiority complex. It's really what it is. All this stuff is just really inferiority as far as I can see. Not the London gangsters.
Well, I'm gonna say this. Look, we got work to do right here. It takes two to make a Pan-African movement work, okay? Now, we've tried to reach out to so many different groups, and it hasn't worked for like 150 years. So it's time for us to focus on us. It's time to come down to reality about a lot of stuff, whether we like it or not, and move on. Now, if these other people can get their act together, then we can talk about a Pan-African movement.
Yep. I appreciate you, fam. Thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate you. Have a happy New Year, okay? Have a good one.
Thank you. Same to you.
And listen, like it wasn't like for me, like it was not always that way. It used to be like there was like one woman in the salon. Like if you were going to get your hair done or whatever, there was like usually this one lady in your salon who she was the one who did braids, and everybody knew she was the braider, right? Or like it was like I have a friend who she just doesn't live here anymore, so I can't do it with her. Like she's the person who you would go to do the braids. She's Ada. She's my friend. I would normally say, hey, people be like, oh, do you know somebody who do good braids? And like I could say like, yeah, I have this friend or whatever. Even though she doesn't work at a salon, she's really good at doing that. So if you didn't have anybody in the salon, it was always like you knew somebody who did it because people just grew up doing it. Women just grew up doing it. So you always could find somebody who did it. And so a lot of women, you could just pay them, hey, I'm going to pay you to braid my hair or whatever. And she didn't even do it professionally. But like usually in a salon, there was like this one woman, do y'all have somebody who braids hair? Oh, yes, that's so-and-so. That's Sally back there in the back. Long, tall Sally over there. That's her. Oh, that's by the wash. Yeah, she do shampoo and braids. That's where I come from. That's what it was. Like that's what she did. She braid good hair real, and then she do the shampoo for the other ones, and then she braid or whatever. Like it was some kind of setup like that. It wasn't like there was an African braid shop. That was never my experience. That was never. I saw some of that in DC, but that was never my experience that they were just like everywhere. Like if you looked up one, it said African braid shop. Like we have a desire to do it that way, or like we need African braids. We don't, because we grew up braiding hair or getting our hair braided if we didn't braid hair ourselves. Like I grew up getting my hair braided by my mama. So like, until like I got pictures of myself with little beads braided in my hair. Like we didn't need to go and do African braids. That didn't make it special. So it's wild. Like I don't know. That's just that. Maybe the experience is regional. I don't know. So I can only speak to my experience. Your experience, it may have happened to you. Like I can't tell you what your experience is because that absolutely could have happened to you. It just wasn't my experience. But y'all, we gotta learn to just see when stuff is stupid. People saying that it's just college stuff that I remember when I was in college about this is what it is and this is what we gonna do and all this stuff. That's college stuff. Everything Umar says, I heard somebody say that in college, right? And like I said in a post, like eventually I grew up. right? So, you know, we all grew up, and it's time for other people to grow up and come along with us. So I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that, fam. We're at about 2 hours. I appreciate you. And I think by the time I see YouTube again, tomorrow night on Patreon, by the time I see YouTube again, it'll be New Year. So, Happy New Year, everybody. Like, Happy New Year. We made it, hopefully. We're going to make it in 2024. So, Happy New Year. I appreciate everything. If I don't see you on Twitter or whatever, I appreciate everything that everybody has done. If you have not gone to joinados.com, please do that. Like, the way to fight this is being in an organization that is doing actual work, and not just talking about work, and not just talking to hear yourself talk. You know, you have to move beyond that. That's what the foundation is about. You know, I tried to do content and just let that be that and political information, and I decided it's got to be something else. So I want to thank you all for showing up, for being here, for being helpful, for being 10 toes down. None of this happens. You can't be a leader without people. Like, you can't do anything in any kind of fashion without support. And you know, I thank you for allowing me to come to you on YouTube, and in terms of what we do at ADOS, to be your humble servant, because that's how I view myself. And I'm not going to build a mural with my face on it, because that's not what I want to see. I don't censor myself. So you won't see that. Like, if a mural gets built with me on it, it'll be because I'm dead. So that's a happy way to end the show. I will see you all in the new year. Please be safe as you bring in your holidays. Please take care of your body or whatever. I understand bring it in, but make sure that you don't come in the wrong way. I will see you all next year. So have a good one. Bye, fam.